A positive session that we had both conditions, wet at the beginning and dry at the end, that we cover tons of laps all over the week, that it's good. It's good to put 160 laps on the board each day, and this is important to collect, in order to collect data and to prepare Bahrain in the best conditions. But overall, it's really early stage, and the most important is to be able to complete laps.
And what have Charles and Lewis said as the week's gone on? Are they getting more and more comfortable with the car and the power unit?
Yeah, you have so many things to discover for the team on the engine side, on the chassis side, but also for them on the management of the systems, and so that it means that each lap we are probably a bit better, and it's very demanding for the two drivers, because that they have to not to do a full reset compared to the past, but almost, and it's for sure it's an important week for them.
What if I told you that Lewis Hamilton, in just a few days with Ferrari, completely changed the internal perception of the team, to the point of shocking Vasseur and shaking Charles Leclerc's technical leadership? On January 30th, 2026, at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, what could go unnoticed as just another day of testing took place, but which internally for Ferrari became a true technical earthquake. During the last day of private testing, in the final minutes of the afternoon, Lewis Hamilton, already dressed in red, stopped the stopwatch at 1 minute and 16.348 seconds. That time was not only the best of the day, nor simply the fastest of the entire week. It was the trigger for a chain of internal reactions that altered the SF26 roadmap. Although the paddock received it as just another piece of information for the press sheets, in Maranello a red light went on, but not as a warning, but as a revelation. Hamilton's time surpassed by almost a tenth the best lap that George Russell had set the previous day with the Mercedes. But more revealing was that his own teammate, Charles Leclerc, with whom he shared a garage and track conditions, was more than 3/10 ahead, despite having ridden in moments of higher temperature and grip. This disproved a previous assumption by the team, that Hamilton would need several weeks, perhaps months, to match Leclerc's performance and adapt to the SF26, a car born from an aerodynamic philosophy different from that of Mercedes. The first alarm signal did not come from the stopwatch, but from the box screens. Telemetry showed that Hamilton's laps were not the result of a specific inspiration. Every microdata on his track matched almost perfectly with the simulator's predictions, something that until then had been considered idealistic in real conditions. That exact correlation, corner by corner, braking by braking, line by line, had not been achieved neither with Leclerc, nor during the shakedowns in Fiorano, nor in the most optimistic test benches. The difference was not just human, it was structural. What the engineers saw on their monitors was pure evidence that Hamilton had managed to extract from the SF26 a level of technical coherence that not even the designers had anticipated. Leclerc, for his part, was not indifferent to what was happening. During the previous days, his role had been that of natural leader of the development. He knew the car from its first models, had tested each version of the simulator and actively participated in the feedback that shaped the final version of the SF26. Therefore, his surprise was not only sporting, it was personal. Watching Hamilton, fresh from a structure as different as Mercedes, take control of certain technical areas of the car with such speed of adaptation forced him to look at his own approach in a new light. According to Italian sources, after the session Leclerc asked for a comparative review between his own telemetry and that of Hamilton, especially in relation to the management of the MGUK and the use of the active aerodynamic system in combination with the new power maps. A key difference that began to emerge was the type of feedback each pilot offered. While Leclerc talked about sensations, balance and understeer tendency, Hamilton provided specific points of action. Entry angles, milliseconds of delay in the deployment of electric torque, and suggestions for refinement in the transition logic of aerodynamic modes. His experience of more than a decade dealing with regulatory changes seemed to have given him a technical language that connected directly with the team's analysis structures. It was not about replacing Leclerc, far from it. Ferrari still counted on it as a pillar of pure performance. But inside the garage a new dynamic was forming. One in which technical decisions began to prioritize what Hamilton communicated. This subtle reorganization, not officially declared, was noticeable in who led the post-session conversations, in which driver took up the most time in engineering meetings, and in how the new test protocols were structured. Vasseur knew what this meant. When a driver starts setting the pace of development from day one, the entire team falls in line. Because if the car responds to that language and the performance backs it up, it is not a question of hierarchy. It's about effectiveness. And effectiveness in Formula One is not discussed. It follows. What happened to Lewis Hamilton during the test days in Barcelona was not just a demonstration of speed. It was a masterclass in how to understand and master a Formula One car in its deepest dimension. While many were looking at lap times as the primary metric, Hamilton was operating at another level. Their inputs were not simple reactions to the SF20SIXS behavior. They were calibrated decisions that revealed an intuitive knowledge of the interaction between chassis, electronics, aerodynamics, and hybrid propulsion. What astonished the Ferrari engineers was not his talent, that was already known, but his ability to rewrite, in real time, the rules of use of a car that until then had been barely theoretical in many of its limits. One of the most impressive aspects was its handling of the new hybrid system under the 2026 regulations. The SF26 had been designed with an aggressive approach to energy recovery. The MGU-K now delivers up to 350 kilowatts, without support from the MGU-H, eliminating the traditional balance margin provided by the latter. In theory, this would make the car more sensitive in phases of intense energy load, especially during long braking and exiting tight corners. In practice, Hamilton demonstrated the opposite. Not only did it handle the most aggressive regeneration modes ahead of schedule, but it did so stably that it exposed a fact that the team had not confirmed even on the test bench. The SF26 could operate under extreme hybrid loads without compromising the overall balance or thermal reliability of the system. The information recovered from their laps showed that even under these extreme modes, the temperature of the batteries, electrical inverters, and distribution cables remained in the optimal range. The internal logic of the team could not immediately explain this. In simulation, this type of aggressive management implied the risk of overloading, clipping, or even loss of stability in the rear axle. But Hamilton had discovered an operating zone that combined partial acceleration, regenerative braking, and changing traction modes at exactly the right moment, smoothing the power transition without straining the system. It was as if he deciphered the hidden code of the hybrid architecture, and he did so without the need for trial and error, simply by instinctively reading the dynamic behavior of the car. Another element that drew powerful attention was its mastery of the active aerodynamic system. Unlike other seasons, in 2026 the SF26 allows the pilot to manually manage two aerodynamic modes in real time. Straight mode, which reduces drag on straights to gain speed, and curve mode, which increases downforce to maximize lateral grip. This alternation requires not only reflexes, but an exact understanding of how the car reacts to the micro-change of downforce, something that even for experienced drivers can take weeks to assimilate. Hamilton, on the other hand, started playing with those modes from day one. It activated the curve mode not only in the logic inputs, but also anticipating minimal variations in tire temperature, lateral load angles, and even oscillations of the rear axle. Each activation was accompanied by a calculated decision of electric torque, engine brake adjustment, and traction point. Its precision bordered on surgical. The most surprising thing was that when the engineers analyzed the direct comparison data with Leclerc, Hamilton not only shifted faster, he shifted better. Its entry into the curve was preceded by an aerodynamic transition that stabilized the car even before the dynamic balance needed it. It was like he knew what SF26 was going to do before SF26 did it. This perfect synchronization between man and machine unleashed a new wave of revision in car technical manuals. Not because they were poorly designed, but because someone was flooding them with practical knowledge ahead of time. Finally, one of the most difficult techniques to apply in Formula One is the overlap between brake and accelerator, known as brake throttle overlap. In theory, this is used to stabilize the car in phases of loss of lateral grip, maintaining a minimum traction that prevents the rear axle from completely releasing. But for it to work in a car like the SF26, the driver must be able to apply millimeter pressure to both pedals with perfect timing. A split-second error can cause the car to oversteer, lose power, or incorrectly activate hybrid modes. Hamilton did it consistently lap after lap, even when the track conditions were changing with variations in temperature, side winds, and residual grip from other runs. Nobody at Ferrari had anticipated it. And that was the real revolution. It wasn't just the performance. It was the method. It was the way. It was the silent but total rewriting of how the SF26 should be driven to function at its best. And the person who did it was not an engineer, nor a simulator, nor an algorithm. He was a driver who had taken less than a month to find his soul in a completely new car. And at that moment, without protocols or official presentation, Lewis Hamilton became the new perfect interpreter of the Ferrari 2026 project. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.